Hi everyone, my name is Angelo Fausti. I am a software engineer for data management, and this is my story. I had all my education in public schools in Brazil for free. Even college was free. And in Brazil, most of the scientific research is done in public universities, so definitely a good place to be. I got a degree in physics and a PhD in astronomy from the same university. But when I was in the last year of my PhD, my daughter was born and I didn't think twice. I quit and I got a job in a software company to have more security. But then I had a new job, a baby, and a thesis to write. It was not easy. I remember writing my thesis, holding my daughter on my lap, or spending weekends on my advisor's apartment. But in the end, he was fine, and I finally got my PhD. I still worked for that software company for a couple of years, and the experience was good. Actually, there it was the first time I was exposed to a formal software development process. But it was not really my area, so I decided to start a postdoc. And around that time, Brazil joined the Dark Energy Survey through the DS Brazil Consortium. And my favorite project with DS was Quick Reduce, which I developed with my colleagues at Linea. Quick Reduce was a system to monitor the quality of the DECAM exposures in real time. And for DS, we had to process one exposure every 90 seconds, or about 300 exposures every night. So we put a lot of effort to optimize the pipeline execution, but it was still taking 5 minutes to process the full focal plane. So our solution was to create a flexible pipeline configuration where you could process different patterns on the focal plane for specific studies or randomly process a fixed number of CCDs each time so you can sample the full focal plane after a few exposures. At Rubin, I have the opportunity to help building a state-of-the-art observatory, which is super complex. I like to imagine all the parts of the observatory working together to reach the ambitious goal of taking 1,000 images of the sky every night. And even if I understand only 1% of its complexity, I'm still responsible for dealing with all the telemetry data from the observatory in one of the most interesting and challenging projects I ever worked with, the Engineering and Facilities Database. We have to record high-rate telemetry, commands, and events from every observatory subsystem at the summit, replicate the data to the US data facility, and provide tools to query and analyze the data. And to solve this problem, we at Square proposed an innovative solution based on two modern open source technologies: Kafka, a data streaming platform to make sure we don't lose any data, and InfluxDB, a time series database to efficiently store, query, and explore the telemetry data. For me, working at Rubin has been truly amazing. I hope to see you next year again. Clear skies, be careful, and thank you.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Sandra Romero y soy la coordinadora de seguridad y voy a presentar qué hago yo para Rubin Observatory. Primero voy a comenzar presentando a mi familia. Anastasia, mis hijas, tengo dos hijas, Anastasia que tiene 14 años y Javiera que tiene 23. Y otros miembros de la familia son mis 5 gatos. Mis gustos, me gusta practicar gimnasia, voy 3 veces a la semana, una vez por 1 hora. Me gusta también salir al aire libre, caminar y cargarme de buena energía y cada cierto tiempo juntarme con mis amigas. En mi experiencia laboral debo indicar que primero comencé trabajando en minería en Radomiro Tomic, después en construcción Erices y Toro, y luego mi experiencia en observatorio fue en Gemini. De ahí empecé a compartir tiempo compartido, tener tiempo compartido con el SCT, en la cual comencé a hacer asesoría en seguridad desde sus inicios. Ya con el tiempo comencé a trabajar en el SCT 100% del tiempo y mi primera tarea fue apoyar en el transporte de carga sobredimensionada. De ahí comenzamos el día tomando el bus con 2 horas de viaje, llegando a nuestro casino y llegando a nuestras instalaciones para tomarnos nuestro test antígeno y tomando nuestro Kinexon. Un día normal para mí son reuniones de seguridad diarias con los prevencionistas, revisiones de documentación, ya sea procedimientos, checklist, registro de sanitizaciones, etcétera, y difusiones de seguridad una vez por semana. Los días viernes yo trabajo desde mi casa. Otra de mis tareas es hacer la difusión de las Safety Rules y Safety Recommendations, realizar inspecciones y hacer cumplir y informar sobre los requerimientos del CEPP. Además del trabajo en terreno, de evaluar y mitigar y asegurar las áreas críticas, sobre todo los trabajos que son con izaje, desmontaje y trabajos en altura, trabajos en calor, los cuales tienen que ser siempre supervisados por el prevencionista de la Rubin. Todo esto a través en conjunto con los coordinadores de los contratistas, que en este caso son Patricio Vázquez de la empresa SIR, Francisca Galvez de la empresa MIL, Cristian Santana de la empresa Asturfeito y Jorge Aravena de la empresa EIE. Yo participo y hacemos valer la seguridad en el sitio junto con un equipo de trabajo donde está Sergio Vega, Fernanda Parra y el recién nombrado manager de seguridad Giovanni Corvetto, que aparte de todo el trabajo en terreno, tenemos el trabajo administrativo de hacer revisión y actualización de los procedimientos, de los CPP, de los programas y de todo lo que corresponde a temas de seguridad. Entonces, ¿qué hago yo por ver a Rubin? Yo creo que yo y mi equipo trabajamos con todas las medidas de seguridad necesarias para asegurar tu seguridad y la de nuestro equipo para que tengan un buen retorno. Muchas gracias.
My name is Richard Dubois, and this is Take 22. This isn't as easy as it seems. I'm a senior staff scientist at SLAC, and my history here has been to work on colliding beam experiments for E plus E minus beams up until the end of the 1900s. Around 2000, I switched fields and moved over to gamma ray astrophysics with the Fermi Large Area Telescope. Fortunately for me, it was essentially a particle physics detector that was being launched into space. So I was able to bring expertise from computing and a bit of hardware into Fermi, where I became the computing coordinator. I also decided to learn a completely different science topic and ended up leading an effort on X-ray binaries and microquasars. So Fermi launched in 2008 and is still working amazingly well. Around 2012, Steve Kahn asked me to see if I could do something about the camera test data that was going to start coming in. This was with single CCD testing, starting in Brookhaven, and then rafts, and then finally to come to SLAC and become the full focal plane testing. We built the e-traveler system that some of you may have interacted with, both to help the camera team go through the processes of taking the data, and then also to organize the data itself. Then around 2018, Simon Krugoff was giving a tutorial at PCW on visualization tools. And for once, I decided to go give it a try rather than listen to tutorial and go back to Google spreadsheets, and found that they were easy to do. And I was able to tie in the work that I'd done on organizing test data and build interactive Python server that you could access through the web to basically visualize full focal plane data, and in particular the various tests that the camera team was doing. During this time, I was also moonlighting as the operations manager for the Dark Energy Science Collaboration desk. So that activity wrapped up, and basically I had to honestly step away from the camera data when the DOE decided in January to ask SLAC to become the management for the US data facility. So I've taken on that role to help put that system in place and kind of close a little loop for me from helping with the hardware for the camera, the science collaboration and desk, and now getting the processing and access to data for our science users in place. So the data preview system is proving really quite useful in getting this effort going, both the interim data facility in the cloud and DP0, and then planning for DP1, where ComCam is going to come online. What I've come to realize is that for a system of this scale, automated workflow tools, data movement tools, and hardware systems that will work at scale are going to be critical to success, and not requiring us to have an army of people to do it all by hand. So that's what we're trying to put in place for DP1 and ComCam, is the first elements of all those systems, and make sure that we've got something we can launch at scale for when LSST-CAM and then survey starts up. So I expect that's going to be the next few years of my life, and I'll be interacting with a lot of you in the process.
Hi, my name is Margaux, or Margaux if you're Chilean. I am officially a commissioning engineer. That's not a word. Okay, woo! Aye. Is there enough, screen here? How big is my face gonna be? Ah! Nailed it. Hi, my name is Margaux, or Margaux if you're Chilean. I'm officially a commissioning engineer for the Rubin Observatory, but I've worn a couple of different hats on this project. Red hats and blue hats, one hat and two hats, soft hats, hard hats, near hats, far hats, and I've also had a couple of different jobs. I started out 6 years ago on the LSST camera team at SLAC, then transitioned to planning commissioning activities at the summit, and finally actually moved down here to Chile to do all of that work. But I'm perhaps best known on this project for a certain infamous talk that I delivered 3 short years ago at the Project and Community Workshop. In case you missed it, the answer is 240. I would just like to take this opportunity to clarify that I do not in fact own any corgis, nor would I consider myself a particular fan. I just happened upon this adorable photo on the internet that I really wanted to use in a technical talk, and that's the whole story. In a similar vein, one of the Rubin-related things that I am most proud of from this last year is an overview video that I created to answer some of the important questions, like, compared to other instruments, how fast is the LSST camera's readout speed? And, if necessary, how many elephants could the Rubin Observatory platform lift actually handle? But in all seriousness, if you're looking for a simple but entertaining way to explain what we're trying to do on this project, or why we're even building a new observatory in the first place, feel free to send along the link. When I'm not coaxing corgis into cameras or making videos, I do actually get some real work done. I have a master's degree in mechanical engineering, and I spend most of my working hours designing hardware, building said hardware, testing it, fixing everything that I broke, writing procedures, carefully planning when all of that work is going to happen, immediately throwing away the plans, and updating JIRA. One of the things I've been working on this last year is the camera shipping container, which will be used to transport the camera from SLAC in California, where it's being built, down to the observatory in Chile. Turns out this camera is pretty valuable and just a wee bit fragile. So in order to test out the vibration isolation system, as well as all of the handling procedures, we're going to do a test shipment ahead of time with a dummy mass. And then we can use the data from that to make any upgrades to the container before the shipment of the real camera. The other thing I've been working on is the commissioning camera, or ComCam, which is a mini version of the real camera that will be put on the telescope ahead of time to do some testing. By mini, I really only mean the focal plane. ComCam has only 9 sensors versus LSST Cam's 189, but other than that, it's the same size and weight as the real camera, has the same center of gravity, and can fit the same number of corgis. Theoretically, we'll be putting ComCam up on the telescope later this year or early next year, and I am super excited about it, especially for picking out which hat to wear for the occasion. When I'm not working, you can usually find me adventuring in the mountains. The goal is to get up the mountain and then back down the mountain to where you started, pretty much any way you want. Some of my favorites include skiing, climbing, and hiking, although it doesn't always work out. Unfortunately, I've had less time to do that in the last year and a bit because I've been super busy playing for the Club Deportes La Serena women's football team, which has been a really fun way to integrate myself into the culture and community here in Chile, and has been a bit of a crash course in locker room Spanish. This is supposed to be a lightning talk, so I will leave it at that and get back to my real job of getting this observatory ready to learn some science.